everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have an unhaul. Unhauls a couple of times a year just to get books off of these shelves that I know I didn't fully enjoy or that I know I'm not going to read again, or even books off of my TBR shelves that I know I'm just not interested in anymore. So I actually have like 43 books, I'm pretty sure, here today to share with you guys. In case you were curious, I do actually sell my books on Depop, only for the United States, but that is where that is. If you want more information, I will have that at the end of the video. So we're going to be jumping into the books that I am planning on getting rid of off of these shelves. I think we're going to start with ones that I've read before, that kind of thing, just because that's sort of how they ended up in this stack. And the first one I have here is actually an ARC. This will not be on sale because you're not really supposed to sell ARCs, but it is The Donut Trap by Julie Tew. This is a book that I read last year that I was expecting to be more romance than it was. I do feel like this is just more of a contemporary story. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but because it wasn't exactly what I expected, I don't see myself keeping it. I don't also see myself buying an actual copy of it. I did receive this ARC through a Goodreads giveaway, so I got it for free, obviously, because it was an ARC. And I'm glad I read it. It just was not really what I was expecting it to be. The next book I have here is Blood Heir by Amelie Wen Zhao. I actually read this for a vlog. I'll leave it linked down below in case you're curious. But this was just sort of okay for me. I originally thought this was a duology, but it looks like there was a third book that either came out at the end of 2021 or is coming out in 2022, and I really just sort of thought this book should have been a standalone. There were some good aspects in it, but I also just felt like it was drawing everything out a little bit too much, and I just don't see myself continuing on in this series. The next book I have here is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. This is a book that I think I was originally planning on getting rid of in an unhaul like a couple years ago because it was just okay. But the cover of this made me want to keep it on my shelves. I am such a huge cover person. Like, this is gorgeous. Like, it's very holographic. When you go under the cover, it also has like designs under there. But ultimately this is a witchy story that is more atmospheric based than story based. Like, I just again wish there was a little bit more going on. I think I originally gave this 3, maybe 3.5 stars, and that is sort of my cutoff for keeping books. Is if it's below a 3.5, I usually get rid of it. If it's a 3 or a 3.5, it could stay, but I really just don't see myself rereading this. But I'm sure there are people that absolutely would love this. The next one I have here is the Owl Crate edition of A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. I read this one last year. I actually really enjoyed it. I think I gave it like 4, maybe 4.5 stars. I can't fully remember. However, I do not like this Owl Crate cover. The original is a much darker cover. I think it's black with like purple flowers, and there's like spider webs on it, but I think the original actually has maybe like a dead fly or something in there too. I don't know. I just absolutely love that cover more. And so I don't really like this one. I might reread this, and if I do, I want the original cover more than this one. This one, I felt like the vibe was completely off from the story, because the story is very much more like dark academia, mystery, like what is going on type of stuff, and this just looks too happy and pretty to me. It also has very gorgeous silver edges, but yeah, that's the cover. I will say, underneath the book, like these vibes that they gave us on the reverse dust jacket and stuff definitely fit it more, but I'm also just like, I would rather have the original. Another Owl Crate book is Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar. This one is a gorgeous book, and I do actually really love that they changed from like the yellowy golds to the silver and purple. But this is one of those books that I only gave, I think, 3 stars. It did some things really well, like the culture, the Indian culture that was brought into this book. But as an actual YA fantasy, there were some things that were just really dragging out, and I did not enjoy that way. Like, I wished there was more going on in this story. And because it was a 3, I'm never going to read it again, even though I really do think this book is gorgeous. Like, this is gorgeous. That's gorgeous. It has really deep purple edges. But I'm never going to read it again. And so, yeah, very pretty book, but I don't need it on my shelves. Next, we have a book that I had been planning on continuing in the series for a while, and it's just really hard to get a hold of the subsequent books. And because I read this years ago, like I don't even remember exactly when, but years ago, I don't think I'm going to continue with the series anymore. I have slowly gotten rid of all of my Scott Westerfeld books in Unhauls because I read them so long ago that I just don't think he's necessarily an author for me anymore. But this is Leviathan, the first book in a trilogy that is very steampunk-esque. I think it's based in World War I, but like an alternate World War I, and I really liked what was going on with this book, even though I am not a historical fiction type of person, I am not a steampunk type of person, but the fact that I did enjoy this book specifically means that it's pretty darn good. However, like I said, I'm just never going to continue with the series anymore, and I've slowly gotten rid of this author. This book in general is very, a little bit warped and floppy just because of how long I've had it, and it is a paperback. But I do also remember it having, yes, the like illustrations and stuff in it, and there's like flying beasts that they use as like blimps and air cars and stuff. Like, it's a very interesting world, but I just don't think I'm going to continue with it. Next, we have the Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This was actually a gift for me from Olivia Savannah from Olivia's Catastrophe, and I'm so appreciative that she sent this my way. I was so happy that I got to read it because it was a big book on BookTube in the last couple years. However, I didn't connect with it as much as some people seem to. I went in expecting one thing and got something a little bit different. I think it's because a lot of people had been talking about how this was a good like coming of age story, like in high school and college, and like doing this kind of thing and figuring out who you want to be. But a lot of the story takes place before that, before we actually get that part of the story. And so that part of the story was like less than half of this entire book, especially because it is written in verse. So it is a very short read. And so I was just went in expecting something completely different, and I'm never going to read this again. I liked the fact that I did, but I'm never going to reread it. And this is a gorgeous book that has a lot of significance to a lot of people, and I feel like other people need to read this as well. So that is why I want to pass it on. The next book we have here is an Illumicrate edition. This is The Devil Makes Three by Tori Bovolino. This is one of my favorite Illumicrate editions that they did last year. Like, it is absolutely gorgeous. I love how they did this. Like, this is a completely unique cover. It's not similar to either the US cover or the UK cover. I love the colors. Like, seriously, this book, the edges, everything about it, like the end papers going into the naked hardcover. This is just a gorgeous book. However, it was a 3-star, a very low 3-star for me. And so even though this is absolutely gorgeous, like I am so in love with how this looks, I did not enjoy it enough to want to keep it or want to reread it. And I'm already a little bit apprehensive about this author's work because I know this author has another book coming out this year that sounds intriguing, but so did this one. So this was just one of those ones where you hear about like demonic possession, and there's a library and like enemies to potentially lovers, that kind of thing. They have to work together to figure out what's going on, and it really just fell flat for me, especially with the more horror aspects of it. Like, they play it up so much at the beginning, and then you don't really get a ton of that. You do get some really gory elements here, but the vibe of the book just didn't really fit together for me. And so, yes, it was a very big disappointment last year, but it is a gorgeous book, and I've heard some people absolutely love this, so maybe it's just a me problem, but I'm never going to reread it. The next book I have here is The Secret Next Door by Rebecca Taylor. I read this one in January of this year, so I just read it. I already was apprehensive about this because this is a domestic thriller, and I'm definitely not that type of subgenre reader, and so I gave it 3 stars. It was okay for what it was. However, it is very much the domestic thriller type of thing. And I'm doing thriller in quotes because a lot of domestic thrillers for me are not very thrilling. Like, the fact that this does have a like, oh, well, there was a murder of a child, we don't know who did it, that kind of thing, that is in here. But the whole like trying to figure out who did what, was so much on the back burner to family problems and community and neighbor problems that like once we actually got the reveal, it didn't feel like it mattered because nobody seemed to care that this kid had died earlier in the book. It was all just petty problems. And so, yeah, not my type of thing, but overall the writing style wasn't bad, so 3 stars. I'm sure people that love domestic thrillers would definitely want to pick it up. To me, it felt a little bit like Broadchurch, so if you've ever seen that TV show, that's what it felt like. But the TV show was better. The next one I have here is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This is one I read last year, actually really enjoyed. I gave it a 4-star. However, I'm never going to read it again. This is one that I expected going in to be a romance. And that's because that was how it was being billed when this was first coming out for pre-orders and that kind of thing. The author has said it is not a romance, but I feel like they had to specify that once people started actually going out, buying the book, picking it up, and reading it, because it's not a romance. This is just a contemporary story about 2 characters who are women who end up getting married in Vegas, like after a one-night stand sort of thing, and it is very much about our main character figuring out who they are, 1, within the relationship, but also 2, just in general with themselves and their job and like that kind of thing. So it is more of a coming of age story, even though both of our characters are adults. Like this is not a young adult or even a new adult story, but it is also not a romance. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I did actually like this one, but I just will never end up reading it again. Next, we have a book that I DNF'd this year, which is The Brilliant Death by A.R. Capetta. This one I DNF'd because it's just not my thing anymore. This is a YA fantasy that I read the first 50 something pages, I'm pretty sure. It had a lot of more like mobster type of mentality in it and not as much magic at first, and it just had those kind of tropes that I did not really enjoy. And so the fact that the writing style was a little bit slower for me, not my thing, and we were getting a lot of the more like crime family type of stuff going on more than actual fantasy magic, I just knew I wasn't going to enjoy it, so I DNF'd it, but this is one that people do seem to enjoy. It just was not for me. Then we have some books that I have not read before, but I am getting rid of them. The first one we have is The Night We Burned by S.F. Kosa. So this is a book that I received in an unplugged book box, and it is an adult thriller mystery type of thing about cults, like about a character who used to be in a cult, now isn't, and something happened in that cult before. I am okay with cult books, but it's not something that I feel like I need to read, and the ones that I have read before almost all feel like this. A cult with a fire and some mystery of what happened there. And for the life of me, I just don't want to read it, even though I have read things that feel similar in the past and enjoyed them. But yeah, I just don't think I'm ever going to pick this one up. The next one I have here is the Illumicrate edition of A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske. This one is a duplicate edition. This one I did actually receive in an Illumicrate unboxing, and it was not necessarily damaged, but it had a printing error on the dust jacket. As you can see here, the guys that are on the front, they're not fully in yellow like they're supposed to be, so I ended up getting a replacement from Illumicrate for this. It is still a really gorgeous book. I love how they did the dust jacket here, where it is basically just clear, and so the book is the one that has the design on it. And so basically this is a duplicate edition because I have a replacement that is still not perfect, but much better than this one. But yeah, I figured I would see if anybody wanted this Illumicrate edition who had not had it before and didn't mind having it slightly damaged / printing error. And then I also have the Illumicrate edition of Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. I am just not really interested in this book. One, it is super, super thick, but I have heard some things going on with this, with misogyny and stuff like that, and this is a very, very, like, grim, dark fantasy type of thing. That's not my vibe. I do really enjoy the books that he has written with Amy Kaufman, so like the Illuminae Files and the Aurora Rising stuff, but this specifically just does not seem up my alley. I obviously have this because I had an Illumicrate subscription, and so yeah, that's why I have this one. I am never going to pick this up and read it, even though again, the Illumicrate edition is absolutely gorgeous. Like, they did this so nicely. Like, this is such a cool looking book. But yeah, it's just not my vibe, not my thing. I'm never gonna read this one. Okay, so those are actually the books. Now I have some graphic novels here. The first one is Afterglow by Pat Shand, art by Kaylin Smith. I absolutely love Kaylin Smith. I like devour everything that she illustrates and authors. She's done Plume, she's done For Goodness Sake. She's currently doing The House of Lowther on her Patreon, and I just absolutely love her stories. This one is just her illustrations with Pat Shand being the writer here. And this is basically like a post-apocalyptic type of world where there's animals that have gotten like radiation basically, and they're now like huge. And it's very interesting, but I feel like this book didn't fully come together to make me love it. I gave this 3 stars. It is an indie published book that I think I funded on Kickstarter, and so I do think it was a very fun read, but I'm never going to read it again, and I feel like more people might want to try this. And then I have 2 more indie published comics. These are Long Lost by Matthew Ehrman, art by Lisa Sturl. This is volume 1 and volume 2, or book 1 and book 2, because I don't think they're comics, they are graphic novels. This is the entire series. So book 1 and book 2 together, this is the whole story. I really love the art on this one, but again, the story aspect of it, there were some things that just didn't fully come together for me, and so I gave, I think, both of these 3.5 stars, something like that, because I did enjoy it. This one's very dark, actually. I think it's more probably like horror-y than some of the other stuff that I read, which is fine because I do love me some good horror, and like I said, the art was very, very interesting with this, but I'm never going to read it again, and I do, again, feel like people should want to potentially pick this up, and this is the entire series. Now we have manga. The first one I have here are 14 volumes of Horimiya by Hiro and Daisuke Hagiwara. I read the first 9 volumes near the end of last year when I was doing the, I think, was this the 25 days of manga in December? And I'm done with the series. I have 14 volumes here. I previously read like the first 6 years ago, read the first 9 in December, and it started off really well, like 4 stars, eventually got to 5 stars on some volumes, and then it started slowly going downhill again, and volume 9 ended up as like a 3. My biggest issue with this is that this is shonen, which is actually not an issue, the whole like it's aimed at boys, but the fact that this is supposed to be more about friendship and romance, you can still tell that it is aimed at boys, because later on in the series we have some weird consent issues, we have some weird, potentially like bordering on abuse issues, and we have some not so great like poking fun at people being gay sort of things. I just had some issues with those, and they sort of built up because once one of these things is introduced into this book series, it stays there with every subsequent volume, and so it got to the point where I think one of the things about Hori, one of our main characters, liking Miyamura, pushing her around and being very aggressive and sort of talking down to her, like, again, like I said, these are sort of issues that have a very gray line here, and I was just very uncomfortable. But once that showed up in like volume 5 or 6, it showed up in every subsequent volume, and I was just getting done with reading that kind of stuff. I know there are people that absolutely love these, and I've kept them in great condition here, but I do have the first 14 volumes. So here's volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, volume 5, volume 6, volume 7, volume 8, volume 9, volume 10, volume 11, volume 12, volume 13, and volume 14. The next set of manga that I have here are the first 8 volumes of Queen's Quality by Kyosuke Motomi. This is a sequel series to QQ Sweeper, although you do not have to read that necessarily to get into these. My thing with this is that I read these first 8 volumes a couple years ago. and I just haven't felt the need to pick up more in this series. I don't know how much more there is, but I feel like I'm just never going to have that need anymore. I'm never going to want to continue. So even though I really did like these, like the first few volumes of this were 5 stars each, and the last couple ones I think were 4 stars, just because it was taking a little while to like wrap up the arc that we were currently in. It is a paranormal like shoujo series, but I'm just never going to read them again. So I have volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, volume 5, volume 6, volume 7, and volume 8. And then the last 4 books that I have here, again, manga, but what I have are the first 4 volumes of The Case Study of Vanitas by Jun Mochizuki. So this is one that, again, I read the first volume a few years ago. It is about vampires, and I think some subset, I can't remember if it's actually they are vampires or they're not vampires and they're vampire hunters, but they're trying to find the case study of Vanitas, which is like a book about vampire stuff. I remember liking this one pretty well. I think I gave it a 4 star. I started volume 2, like I had a bookmark in this manga for years, like at least 2 years I had a bookmark in here. And the thing is, I just don't think I'm going to pick it back up. It just hasn't held my interest. Anytime I do a manga reading thing, I have not picked it up, even though I have the first 4 volumes. And so I think it's just time that I realistically tell myself, yeah, I'm probably never going to end up reading these, and so I'm going to pass them on. So again, this is volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, and volume 4. Okay, and so those are all of the books that I'm currently getting rid of in this unhaul. Like I said also earlier, I am selling these on Depop. So the quick spiel for everything. I only sell within the United States because of the fact of shipping. Shipping to other countries is just horrible right now through the USPS. It is so expensive. I'm sure other people from other countries having to ship things out know this as well. But I will be having a sale also on the books that I have on Depop. So starting today, March 17th, when you guys are seeing this video, these books will go up on Depop, and the sale will go for 1 month, so March 17th through April 17th. These books here will be 15% off of what I would normally put them on Depop for that month period. They will have the prices reflected in the price, because I am not allowed to put a sale on new things on Depop until it's been I don't know how long, but I will have the prices reflected there. Everything else that I have on my Depop, I'm actually going to have 40% off for that month. Because they've been on Depop for a while, I can put them as on sale, so you will actually see like a little sale tag on there as well, and you can purchase books if you would like to. I like to use Depop to get rid of my unhauled books, because then I get a little bit of money back that I can eventually put back into this channel, use it for new books or equipment, that kind of thing. So this is just something to put back into my channel. I will also say that for shipping, I use like a base shipping price. I use media mail for all the shipping, but it is bundled. So if you buy more than 1 book, you're only paying shipping once. You don't have to worry about like having shipping for every single book, etc. I think that's it actually for the Depop thing, but yes, they will be going up when this video goes up, so they're already on there. And for 1 whole month, they will be on sale. 15% off for these ones, 40% off for everything else that I have on there. And so I think that is going to be it for this video then. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I have videos up Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I will see you then. Bye. Bye.